Welcome to Slow Night Ancient Tales, a gentle harbor for your restless mind. Tonight, we set sail from the final port of the eastern coast, venturing into the vast, mist-covered northern seas. Listen to the soft rhythm of the waves lapping against the hull, and the quiet breathing of passengers dreaming of a beautiful tomorrow. Pull your blankets close, close your eyes, and let the gentle sway of the story carry you away. The night is deep, and our journey into tranquility begins now. Near the Russian coast. Leaving the last port on the east coast, heading north and further north. After staying up the night and passing the day, the sea grows even bluer. The sky is cold and the horizon is distant. Kicking away the white teeth of the waves gnawing at the ship's sides, the vessel continues its solemn march. A flag flies high on the mast, and the smoke is torn to shreds and scattered by the cold wind. Crossing the wide estuary of the Tumen River and passing over the border, the successive mountain peaks of the Russian coast come into view. Snow-capped, golden-purple peaks, towering and shining in the setting sun of the northern country. The darkening deck is quiet. Only the laughter of the first-class passengers drinking in the salon occasionally leaks out. Other than that, there is not even a sign of a person. On the deck behind the salon at the stern, leaning against the faint bulwark, two passengers are discussing something. One is a young man wearing tortoiseshell glasses, and the other is a high-nosed Mauja. The black enamel belt worn over a camel-colored leather shirt and the thick, heavy shoes that suggest footsteps loud enough to roll the whole world, along with a sharply brimmed hat, make him look all the more heroic. As they constantly roam around the maritime province, as well as the areas of Nerchinsk and Chita, a large, broad-minded demeanor typical of the Slavic people hovers about them. The Mauja chatters with the young man in tortoiseshell glasses in a language that is not Korean. The sharp-smelling XX bustles about, following them everywhere without exception. Even while deep in discussion, they sometimes stop talking and cast frequent glances toward the salon. There surely must be a fellow from the XX trailing them. The blue sea fades into the fog. A couple of white seagulls, appearing from nowhere, screech as they cross in front of the ship and vanish into the fog. With the sound of the seagulls gone, the deck grows even quieter. In the paint-smelling salon, a feast has been laid out, rivaling any on land. It is their habit to drink heavily and get thoroughly drunk without reservation the moment they cross the border and set foot in a foreign land. Countless plates of meat and fruit are placed on the white tables, and liquor bottles and glass cups circulate endlessly. As most of them are merchants, talk of shares and rice speculation blossoms among them. For them, figuring out how to squeeze out as much money as they please from this fully advantageous market is the shared consensus among those whose bald heads gleam with grease. The fellow from the XX, who thinks, "It's orders from the station, so I only need to follow them. There's no need to strain myself to fulfill my duty," is also sitting in a corner, equally intoxicated by the quiet thought of how he might line his own pockets. In pleasant intoxication and pleasant thoughts, they are enjoying themselves to their heart's content. The liquor bottles pour foam relentlessly. The glass cups are tilted endlessly. The boy in white clothes rushes around non-stop. The bastards sure scarf it down like pigs. The boy, who was carrying dishes from the galley, muttered to himself as he came around the winch, stealthily slipping away a couple of plates and hiding them behind the winch. I must reduce their portions to save my comrade. A few fathoms down an iron chain ladder from the salon deck lies the engine room. If the salon, with its liquor on white dining tables, the shining sun, the fresh smell of paint, the view of the blue sea from the portholes, and even the occasional slanting moonlight, is a paradise, then the engine room of scorching heat and darkness is an absolute hell. This false contrast of the land is just as blatantly exposed within this small gathering on the sea. This dark, suffocating hell, steaming with the heat of the boilers, might not compare to the fiery hell. Here Satan was exiled, falling down and down for 9 days after tempting Eve. But then again, how could the imaginary hell woven by a poet's illusion ever compare to the realistic hell woven by the cunning of this world? The stokers stoking the fire in front of the furnace, their faces roasting, look like demons playing with fire in hell, and crouched in half-nakedness. They resemble gorillas crouching in a primeval forest. Not even a few minutes after shifting in, their flesh contorts and sweat pours down uncontrollably. In a narrow space barely 2 can wide, the fire and coal ash from poking the furnace with a long fire poker over 2 can long thickly cover the firebox in a cloudy haze. Scooping the burnt cinders to the brim of the buckets, and then spreading and throwing in coal with a shovel, flames flare up wildly, darting like the flicking tongues of venomous snakes. Once the second and third furnaces are regulated like this, the engine room becomes a completely blazing hell. The 6 boilers above the furnaces surge, raising steam of over 100 pounds. Poking the fire, sweat pours down and their whole bodies literally roast red. The water fetched in a bucket disappears in the blink of an eye between the 3 stokers. In fact, if they didn't drink water, they couldn't endure even for a moment. If the seas of the north are like this, how much worse would it be crossing the Indian Ocean right beneath the equator? This is how the ship moves. The salon rocks lightly enough to heighten the drunkenness. Just half an hour after their shift begins, the stoker's physical strength becomes as limp as an octopus's legs. They lose even the energy to lift a single fire shovel. The boiler's pressure starts to drop. The captain, who had been fantasizing about the girls at the port from the bridge, shouts through the speaking tube, "Attention to the engine! Increase speed!" The chief engineer, who was also fantasizing about the breasts of the port girls, jumps up at this command and runs to the firebox. "What are you doing?" The stoker sluggishly shovels coal into the furnace. "We're working. What else? Do you think we have it easy like you?" But this did not come out of his mouth. An explosion must find its proper moment. "Work diligently, you bastards!" The chief engineer's fierce glare urges the backs of the stokers. Should I strike him with the fire shovel and burn him in the furnace? He would be turned to ashes in less than 3 minutes. This exact same thought flared up equally in the minds of the 3 men. Deep darkness. A space of darkness that seems to have severed all ties with this world. Inside the coal bunker, blocked off squarely from this world by iron walls, is eternal night. Only the ceaseless rocking and the faint sound of the engine drift in. Within this death, there is unmistakably a thrashing body. Every time it thrashes, lumps of coal scatter with a clatter. "Ah! Ah!" The vocalization of these primitive vowels sounds less like a cry for salvation and more like a voice trying to test itself. That is, testing whether any life remains or not. "Ah! Ah!" Perhaps having exhausted his energy and collapsed on the spot, it is quiet for a moment. A match was struck over the clattering pile of scattered coal. The blue phosphorus light illuminates the haggard face of a young man sprawled out flat on his stomach over the coal heap. His begrimed face beneath his unkempt hair is miserable in the blue light, and a cold wind seems to swirl in his clear, bright pupils, which seem to be the only things alive. "Water!" Shouting desperately, he struck another match. In the firelight, pieces of fragmented bread and a water bottle can be seen. Inside the shaking water bottle, there is not a single drop of water. Throwing the bottle aside, the young man struggles to his feet and shouts again. "Water! Water! Water!" Like a madman in the dark, he thrashes around alone, without an opponent to fight. No, it isn't that there is no opponent. It isn't that the XX don't exist. But what is visible right before his eyes is nothing but darkness, hunger, and thirst. Lumps of coal fly in the dark. The sound of 2 fists pounding against the iron wall echoes. However, no matter how much he thrashes about in this dark space walled off from the world, it is ultimately nothing more than a futile effort in this forsaken space. Just as the desperate struggle of a rat trapped in a jar holds no connection to the world outside it. "Ah! Water! Water! Water!" He slammed his body against the iron wall, mustering his final strength. There are footsteps coming down the iron chain ladder at a hurried pace. The sound of footsteps stopped in front of the coal bunker. The beam of a flashlight casts moon-like outlines wildly upon the coal bunker door. The beam aimed at a spot on the chipped, dark red paint. And right there, it was unlocked with a key. A cold wind brushed his face, and the darkness threatened the space ahead. The beam of the flashlight wildly illuminated the inside of the coal bunker until it finally rested upon the miserable face of the young man collapsed in the center. "Water! Water! Reaching out both arms, he cries out. The one who guided a ray of light into this dark space that had severed ties with the world was the boy from the salon. I'm sorry. Saying so, he holds up the young man and tilts a water bottle into his mouth. Pour the liquor, bring the glasses, they say. Those bastards won't let me go even for a moment. The boy comforts him as if apologizing. The young man, who had gulped down the water frantically, wiped his mouth and exhaled. Pull yourself together and eat this. The boy opens the biscuits he brought and takes out various kinds of food. Meat, bread, fruit, and a high-class, unfamiliar foreign liquor with a golden label. Since it was food hidden from the first-class passengers, it couldn't possibly be ordinary. If we reduce their portion for one meal, it will be enough to fill ours for 10. At the grateful encouragement, the young man tears into a piece of bread with fresh appetite and asks his comrade, "Just how many miles are left on Earth?" Squeeze your eyes shut and endure just one more day. Another day? Endure just one day, and you will be able to slip perfectly into the destination, into the country you have dreamed of every day. Oh, to that country. Dropping the piece of bread, the young man puts on a solemn smile and briefly falls into meditation as if dreaming, then shyly wipes away a stream of tears, overflowing with emotion, with the back of his hand. When we get there, I too will take off these wretched clothes and cast away my life up until now. Ah, when we get there, we have comrades. We have comrades working with the Mauja. To the resounding rocking of the ship, lumps of coal roll down. The sound of waves and the engine are heard anew. Well, I should be going now. I have to be faithful to my duties during the day, don't I? His comrade stands up from his spot. One day. Fill your stomach fully and endure firmly for just one day. Whenever I have a chance, I will avoid their eyes and come again. Pressing the flashlight into the young man's hand and taking off a layer of his own undershirt to wrap around his body, he left the coal bunker. The two-tiered third-class cabin is completely packed, both upper and lower bunks. Though it is not a long voyage, countless faces, exhausted from the rocking and suffering, have lost their vitality and withered like seed leaves. There is a person, tying his hair tight and wearing ragged cloth wrappings around his feet, going to make money. The husband who had gone to Puryong and Chongjin, said to be good for making money, is now heading north again, where it is also said to be good for making money. Just as people from the American East dreamed of the gold-yielding W.Est California, he vaguely fantasizes about the northern country where nuggets of gold roll around. There are also many who vaguely seek out a country with no rich or poor, a good country for everyone to live together. Among them is an old man over 50 who departed using coins gathered penny by penny over 3 years for his final boat fare. There is also a pitiful mother going to collect the bones of her son, who went off to Russia and died far from home 13 years after leaving for Seoul to study. A young woman wearing unusually colored clothes and powdered with makeup is also a woman of the port, heading to a port good for making money. Since wealthy Mauja are unusually fond of Korean girls with different complexions, she is a woman seeking a rich port where experiencing just 2 such travelers a night provides plenty to eat for a month. Mixed within this forest of people of various strata is a young man muttering and memorizing something. A book of the world map kept in his bosom and a Russian conversation book in his hand are his entire fortune. There, among those who have succumbed to seasickness and lie flat with their noses buried in the stench, he alone, with a clear mind, memorizes Russian words one by one. Poor worker, bedni rabochi, history, historia, war, voina. He closes the book, shuts his eyes, and again recites them inwardly, word by word. Flag, znamia, beautiful tomorrow, krashivoy zavtra. Waves splash into the porthole, pierced like a window hole. For the young woman looking out the foggy window at the deep, misty horizon, thoughts of leaving the port a few days ago surface in her heart. The clattering sound of the winch winding the anchor echoed loudly within the harbor. As the anchor was wound up, the ship's horn signaling departure blew a long "Two," and the ship began to move quietly. People seeing them off and those leaving on the pier and deck waved their hands, shouted, and fluttered handkerchiefs. Though there was no mother, no brother, nor neighbor to see her off, Tears suddenly welled up as the distance between the ship and the pier widened. Somehow, feeling as though she was departing for the last time on a journey from which she could never return, she shed tears, looking back at the familiar mountains and rivers until the ship left the harbor and turned the mountain bend. She shed tears. The deep fog, spouting abundant tears, frosted outside the porthole, and a sorrow that knew no clearing frosted within her cloudy heart. The tortoiseshell glasses in the Mauja, still quietly chattering about something, come into the third-class cabin and go to their respective seats. The young man who was absorbed in Russian seems unable to suppress the urge to say something with a smile as he sees the Mauja. Ruski Karasho! Ruski Karasho! In broken words, whatever they may mean, he expresses his goodwill this way. The Mauja, too, smiles as if pleased and reaches out his hand to him. The night has deepened. The sea is deep, and the sky is deep. In a distant corner of the deep sky, a single star twinkles. The mountain peaks winding across the coastal sky have also hidden their outlines in a deep sleep. Only the red and green lights high on the mast shine like the faint breathing of the sleeping night, and the deck is quiet. Leaning against the railing of the quiet deck, there are two shadows whispering in low voices. They are the tortoiseshell glasses and the Mauja. On the deck, devoid of any human presence or sound of footsteps, they still occasionally look behind them and secretly discuss something. Only the sound of waves quietly sweeping past the ship's sides occasionally interrupts their conversation. The night has grown deep. The sea and the sky have dissolved into a profound slumber. Far away, a single star twinkles in the vastness, while the red and blue lights on the high mast glow like the soft breath of the sleeping night. Even on a swaying ship traveling through the dark, souls find rest in the hope of a brighter dawn. May your night be just as peaceful, safely guided by the stars. Let the sound of the ocean wash away your worries. Good night, and drift into a beautiful tomorrow.